Hello, I am Panos Kotzathanasis, and this is Asian Movie Pulse Interviews. Today I'm here with Mr. Roger Garcia, a film producer, former executive director of Hong Kong International Film Festival, and former executive director to the Asian Film Awards Academy, for which currently he is working as an advisor for the Film Camp program. How are you, Roger?
Good, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So let's start from the beginning. Tell me a bit about the AFA Academy, what it is all about, let's say.
Right. The Asian Film Awards Academy was started in around 2007. It was originally under the umbrella of the Hong Kong International Film Festival. The idea was that the Hong Kong International Film Festival didn't really give awards as an international film festival of mainly art house films. It was not in the awards business. So the Hong Kong International Film Festival Society set up a separate group, the Asian Film Awards, to give awards every year to the best talents in Asian cinema. And of course, this is at a time when Asian cinema was also gaining even more steam than it had in the past decade. So the AFA, as we call it, became an annual fixture and an annual event that took place at the same time as Hong Kong Film Mart. And Hong Kong Film Mart is not run by the Film Society, but run by the Hong Kong Trade Development Council. But it's the biggest film market in Asia now, and always has been actually since it started a couple of decades ago. So it was great to be able to have an award show and also to tap into the various people, talents and industry people who were coming to Hong Kong for the film market. And then around 2013 or so, slightly later, we set up the Asian Film Awards Academy. So it wasn't just a one-off, an annual event of giving awards every year, but also the Academy itself became something of advocacy and promotional organization. So the Asian Film Awards Academy prepared and programmed selections of Asian films to tour around the world. And also started some year-round activities for young people, such as getting film critics or young film writers together and to take them to a festival so that they had the experience of both the program in the festival and also the market in the festival, which is very important nowadays. So they got both sides of it, the art and the industry of it. And then there are various other programs. The AFAA, as we call it, sends young professionals overseas. We started that program a few years ago, and we originally sent some young professionals to post-production labs in Germany, actually, to also study visual effects. And now we're also sending people to Thailand for White Light, which is one of the best post-production houses in Asia. And also we've sent people to Bologna to study film restoration in the Cinema Ritrovata, the Bologna Cinematheque. So there are various programs like that. And then the latest initiative is to have the International Film Camp, which will take place in Macau next April.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And can you tell me a bit more about the film camp, since this is the main topic?
Yes. The film camp is originally started off in order to try and stimulate or to help and nurture young film talents in Macau and Hong Kong, in our part of the world. But gradually, as these things tend to do, it expanded, and it's now aimed at all young Asian filmmakers. It's supported by actually Sands China, which runs several of the big resorts and casinos in Macau, which is also one of the reasons why it's in Macau, but because they're giving us great support. We from Sands, they have the Venetian, the Londoner, and the Parisian. So venues to choose from. We can show some films there too, as well as a good venue for our film camp itself. And then we also have support from Create Hong Kong, which is I guess the equivalent to a ministry or a cultural agency in other countries that gives support to the film industry and the creative industries, such as design and things like that. But Create Hong Kong has been a big supporter of the film industry and also film activities, which includes, of course, the Asian Film Awards. So it was a natural fit. So Create Hong Kong is coming in to support us, and also there is support from the Macau government. So these three elements all help to make for what I hope will be a very successful platform.
And can you tell me a bit more details about the curriculum, the program, let's say?
Yes, sure. The International Film Camp is a program aimed at young filmmakers, as I said, and the idea is that let me just say that the plan is to to select 16 young filmmakers from all over Asia, and also Hong Kong and Macau, of course, and then to bring them to Macau for 5 days intensive film camp activity. And that would be where they are mentored by a professional. And then they also attend panel discussions, and they have special sessions with speakers. The idea is that the 16 filmmakers should come with a short film project, preferably in the form of a script, and that's probably how it would work, in either English or Chinese. And they would come to Macau with their script, and they would work through that script and also perhaps some of the logistics of making the short film with the mentors and the professionals who are there at the film camp. So someone would come, they have a project, the theme is my hometown, so they would work on that script with professionals. Hopefully also there'll be some interaction with their peers, and they get, enrich the project, so to speak. And at the end of the project, 16 of the participants will pitch to a small panel. They will pitch their project in terms of the story and etc. And the panel from those pitches will choose 8 filmmakers to whom they will give around $40,000 each to make their film. So what will happen is that someone comes to Macau with a project and a script, works through it in a kind of development phase, and also working out some of the logistics. And then if they're successful, they get a fairly generous sum, I think, of $40,000 to make a short film. And then when they've made their short film, which should be within 3 to 6 months, the Asian Film Awards Academy itself will help to promote that film and also include it in its touring program of other Asian films. So we will put together several of the short films into, say 80-minute length movie, and send that also around Asia for audiences to enjoy. So it was very much part of the plan to have a kind of throughput process. That's to say, you apply with a project, you have a script, it's developed to a stage where it's shootable. You also know how much money you have. You actually get the money, and then you have distribution and exhibition as well. So this is a great step up for a filmmaker, a young filmmaker. There are many, if I can put it this way, there are many good film workshops and film labs around the world. And they all have a lot of talking and advice, and good advice, on how to make a project, and maybe some ideas of co-production. But at the end of the day, at the end of that film lab or film workshop, you still have to go out and find money. And I was very keen that in our case, you find the money in the lab, in the film camp itself. We will give you the money, and then you go out and you make your film. And then the other thing is that the difficulty for a young filmmaker, particularly in short films, is to actually show the film. I produced short films myself before, so I know, how difficult it is. And what usually works, and what worked for me many years ago, was to put together a package of short films, and I sent that around the world and made some sales as well. So, and having run a film festival, I know that in a film festival, if you send one short film, there's always the risk that you'll get lost in the crowd. And so it's always good to have a kind of a package. And in this particular case of the International Film Camp, we wanted to put all of that together to make it easier for the young filmmaker, and also, quite frankly, to give it a kind of a brand name, which is so important nowadays, but to have a kind of identity that these are films from the International Film Camp. We put them together, and then you could watch 4 or 5 of them, in a string in a program. So this process was very important to me, and it's also important that, unlike many other film labs and film workshops out there, we're actually providing the funding and the exhibition and the distribution, as well as developing the project.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell me a bit about the criteria for the people that you are going to select, apart from country of origin and age, let's say?
Yes, we're looking for young filmmakers who really who really want to have a career in the film industry. Usually everybody wants to be a filmmaker, and that's who we're aiming at in this particular case. But, people need to have some experience of filmmaking if later on they decide to become a producer or to stay as a writer, etc. But we are looking for young filmmakers who want to go on and not only make short films, of course, but to go on to make features and contribute to the film industries and film cultures of the Asian region, and of course of their hometowns, of their home territories like Macau or Hong Kong. So there are many young people who have ideas for films. Maybe they've made a short film, and probably have, and they like it, and they find that this is a discipline, a field in which they really feel they can express themselves. So often when you're in that position, when you've made 1 or 2 short films, you're wondering, okay, what do I do next? Should I make a feature film? But that's going to be a 2-year, 3-year struggle maybe to do that if you've never made a feature film before. So with our film camp, we're giving an opportunity to people who've shot some film and short films, and then want to go on and develop their skills or find out more about what should the next step be. And so I hope the film camp, with the mentors and the panel discussions and experts, and also in networking with peers, will give young filmmakers an opportunity to try and work out what should be the next step, what is their direction, what sort of films do they really want to make, and what will actually work in the market to give them a career in the film industry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And can you tell me a bit about the mentors? I see some big names there: Mabel Cheung, Anthony Chen, Amanda Nell. You tell me a bit about them.
Yes, of the first person I got on board for the International Film Camp was Terence Chang, who is a veteran producer. Actually, we worked together in Hollywood before, and he has worked both in Hong Kong, where he was partnered with John Woo, and then went to Hollywood also with John, and then to China. And Terence has had a successful career in all 3 markets. It's quite rare, I would say. He is well known internationally in the film industry, and as I've known him for many years, and he's always been a thoughtful and steady kind of hand, a great guide, and really a very knowledgeable and experienced person. He's also a very nice guy, I would say. He doesn't shout like like many people, or some of us. And we worked in Hollywood, and it was a really good experience. I learned a lot from him. So he was my absolute number one choice when I was thinking, we're thinking, okay, who should we get as a mentor? So Terence is coming on board as our head mentor. And he will also chair the panels for the selection of the candidates and the selection of the people to be awarded the $40,000 grant. He has the right, I think, balance, and is a very fair-minded person. And then we also have Mabel Cheung, who I've also known for quite a few years, who is now a veteran Hong Kong filmmaker, and of course one of the most successful women filmmakers, I would say, from the post-war generation of Hong Kong filmmakers in Asia. I mean, of course, in Hong Kong we have Anne Hui as well, but Mabel has been one of the most successful. She also has she studied abroad, I think, in the US, and has made several different types of films. And recently a documentary, but also before some great feature films. She shot, I think, a film in New York with Chow Yun-fat, etc. So she also has some teaching experience, and this is, I think, very useful when dealing with younger filmmakers, because she's been through that struggle and as well herself. And then we have Mr. Ding Yun San, and Mr. Ding is actually the acting head of the film school in the Academy for Performing Arts in Hong Kong at the moment. And he, for many years, worked with Johnny To in the Milky Way. So as a producer, as a teacher, and someone who has great connections and knowledge of the Hong Kong film industry, I'm very happy that he has come on board as well. And once again, he's a teacher as well as an industry professional, and he's worked with some of the best. I mean, Johnny To is, of course, a very well-known Hong Kong filmmaker. I think he's a wonderful addition to help advise young people as they try and work out the next steps in their career. He's kind of doing this already, of course, in the film school in the Academy for Performing Arts in Hong Kong. And then we have Miss Tan Choi Mui, who is a Chinese-Malaysian filmmaker from Kuala Lumpur. Mui, I've known also for a long time when she was making her first short films as part of the short film movement in Malaysia, the independent short film movement in Malaysia that emerged in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And I showed the films of these young filmmakers in New York and Torino in Italy and various other places. So I got to know some of them quite well. Amir Mohammed introduced me to a lot of them, and people like that. So Mui has been really well internationally acclaimed for both her short films and feature films. She's still very plugged into the short film circuit, and she also has given script writing classes in Chinese online, I think, in China. And she has a following in China for her work, and particularly in terms of nurturing script writers. So it's great to see her. And also I've recently, and we will announce this as well, I think it's coming out, we will also have Anthony Chen as our mentor. Anthony actually was our advisor, but I've promoted him to mentor. And he, of course, is a Singapore filmmaker. He has recently two films actually out this year. One is Drift, that showed at Sundance, and the other is The Breaking Ice with Zhao Dongyu, that was shot in China and it was released in China and shown in Cannes as well. And it's Singapore's selection choice for Oscar nomination for foreign language for foreign international feature films. So we're very happy to have Anthony on board. He has extensive experience he's under 40. He has extensive experience because not only is he a director, but he's also produced films now in Asia through his company. I've known him for really quite a long time, since Ilo days, and I think he has a lot to offer to young filmmakers. So we're very happy with that. And then Amanda Nelu is coming to us as how should I say, a guest speaker. She's going to talk about her film, her first feature film, Tiger Stripes, which shown and won in Cannes, and has now been traveling around the world. Amanda is of the generation that, of course, we are aiming for in terms of the young filmmakers. And it's very important, I think, when filmmakers, young filmmakers, go to a workshop, that it's not just old dinosaurs like myself, but they can relate to some of the people in front of them who are giving them advice. And these people are like them. They're the same generation, the same age. And Amanda has been through the whole process. I've met her a couple of times in project markets, for example, pitching Tiger Stripes. So she's been through the whole grueling process, if I could put it that way, of pitching your idea, your film, to many different people and getting a whole lot of different ideas and maybe some money, and then raising the money and then going out to shoot the film itself, going through post-production, and then having it accepted into a prestigious international film festival. And then after that, promoting it around the world as well as some market releases. So that is a wonderful, I should say wonderful, but that's a very rich experience, I think, and basis from which to talk. And I think she has a lot to share with the younger filmmakers. So she will be one of our guest speakers. But of course, we will also have a masterclass with Mabel Cheung talking about making her films, and particularly as a woman making films in a what was at the time in the 80s and 90s, a fairly macho Hong Kong film industry, I think. And then also a masterclass with Terence Chang talking about his experiences of producing around the world. And of course, he's worked with the biggest stars, Tom Cruise, Chow Yun-fat, etc. I don't think you get better than that.
Okay. Well, I guess we are covered about the film camp. I mean, I would like to be in it after hearing you talk about it.
I'm as a journalist.
Maybe. Okay, so to get away a bit from the film camp, tell me a bit. I feel that there is a rise of the popularity of Asian cinema internationally, particularly the last few years. I was wondering if you could talk to me a bit about that. Why do you feel this happening?
Yes, I mean, I've been through different phases of attention given to Asian cinema, and often it's led by the country, not the continent. And if I could just say, it was Hong Kong first in the 70s and maybe the 80s as well, and the 80s, but it was also the Philippines, particularly with Lino Brocka. And then there have been different variations. And then China, of course, with the fifth generation and Chen Kai-ge, etc. And then later Jia Jiangke as sixth generation, etc. But what we're seeing now in the past, say, 5 years, past decade, is the rise of Korean cinema. And it's Korea's turn to be the engine that pulls the Asian train, so to speak. I mean, Japan was also there before, I think in the 50s and the 60s, actually. So, you could say count on your hand, Japan, Hong Kong, maybe partly the Philippines, and then China, and then Korea. And Korea is the big one now. They've grown, I must say, since the 1990s, when they had what they called the IMF, which was financial depression, economic rehabilitation with the International Monetary Fund, the rise of venture capital, which put a lot, and also the maintenance of how should I say, a trade protection system for their films. That is to say, all Korean cinemas in Korea had to show a certain percentage of their time devoted to Korean movies. This is something that a number of the World Trade Organization wasn't too keen on that, but you can't do anything about it. So it helped give rise to the economy for film. And that's led us to that's led us to the last few years of Bong Joon-ho, the rise of CJ Entertainment, which is, a huge behemoth conglomeration, of course, in Korea, but they also make films. But also the talents and the types of movies that the Koreans have been making seem quite well tuned to the modern world, to the contemporary world. I think, if I could just say that for Korea, it wasn't cinema first. It was K-pop and K-drama first, and then the cinema, which is unlike, I think, the other experiences of the other countries. Usually it's cinema first, and then the different popular culture medium, like pop songs and particularly TV. But in our somewhat topsy-turvy world of streamers and, TikTok and everything like that, it's really been the rise of K-drama and K-pop in the 2010s that have led, I think, to this moment for Korean cinema to step up. And of course, they stepped up, and Bong Joon-ho won Asia's first Oscar for Best Film. And then there have been, of course, several awards since. But of course, Korea is not the only one. There have also been other cinemas still recognized and still winning, and some winning. We mustn't forget, and it's in a slightly different space, though, the art house cinema of Apichatpong from Thailand, and also Lav Diaz from the Philippines, while Bong Joon-ho has been going gangbusters around the world with, say, films like Parasite, and then the other Korean filmmakers like Park Chan-wook and Kim Ji-yoon, Hong Sang-soo, maybe on the art house side. But the other countries, and particularly Southeast Asian countries, have been kind of gaining traction in the art house. And on that particular field, there is one unique character, or talking about that kind of context, there is one unique character who manages to kind of navigate his way through both. And that person is Wong Kar-wai. And Wong Kar-wai was, of course, leading the international side of Hong Kong cinema, I think, from the mid-90s onwards, when John Woo and a few other people moved to Hollywood. Wong was still in Hong Kong, but he was gaining an audience and a market, but on the art house cinema side, not on the commercial side. And he's regarded as both an art house director and a commercial director, actually. I think he thinks very commercially. And of course, he has his new series coming out soon, I believe. So I think Wong Kar-wai is a unique character. But then, so when you look at cinema in Asia, in one sense, you could say it's not necessarily movements, but like the auteur theory, it's the politique des auteurs. It's a series of some quite outstanding and exceptional individuals, I think. I think the Korean experience in terms of national cinema is more unified. In Hong Kong, I think we had a unified Hong Kong cinema probably until around the 90s. And then the financing began to fade away. The Taiwan market didn't work out. So you then had individuals, and that's, I think, where Wong Kar-wai comes through. An Hui is partly between as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about the recent success of Asian American films? We had Minari, now we have Past Lives. How do you feel about those?
Yes, I feel quite good about that. And I have to say, once again, I have a little bit of background here, because in 2001, I did a major retrospective of Asians in American cinema at the Locarno Film Festival. And I showed like 40, 50 films and brought over pioneers like Wayne Wang, who made Chan is Missing, and also James Shigeta, who had been kind of forgotten, but was a movie star in the studio system in Hollywood in the 50s, well before all these other people who we hear about nowadays. So there is a tradition of Asian American cinema, and I live in California, and I am a student of Asian American films. And the history of it from the 1910s onwards with Sesui Hayakawa. So what I see today is perhaps just more, because there are more Asians working in Hollywood and in American cinema now, which is a good thing. But at the same time, when we look at these, we mustn't forget some of the foundations that were laid by our predecessors. And there were many, and many of them have been forgotten. And I just hope that someday some of these people will begin to be recognized in the history books. It's very important. That's why I did the retrospective in Locarno, well, 20 years ago now. And, you can measure 2 decades. It has changed. There are some younger filmmakers and things like that. I think, though, one of the issues, if I can put it that way, is what sort of cinema will Asian American cinema be in the end? Which way will it go? At the moment, we have two directions, or two tendencies, I think is more accurate. One is the family drama, which is the usual thing. Melodrama is actually a cornerstone of Asian cinema, so it's not surprising to see it in Asian American cinema, and it's also part of American cinema of Douglas Sirk and people like that. So you have that family drama, family melodrama, dysfunctional family. And on the other hand, you have the eccentricities, like Everything Everywhere All at Once. And that eccentricity is another tendency. And that tendency grows out actually of, I think, a curious conglomeration of Hong Kong martial arts movies and spoofs of them, if I can put it that way, and also eccentric American comedy of people need to be different, and that's what makes them distinctive. That sounds like a fairly common sense thing to do, but when you live in a society where there are certain norms and standards of getting a job, et cetera, then living differently is a very individualistic notion, and it's also an American notion, I think. So I see these two tendencies. One is of the classic standard family melodrama, and the other of the eccentric novelty. Now, which one will last remains to be seen. We know that Hollywood goes in cycles. Not all Asian American films are Hollywood, of course. Many of them are indie films. But let's go back to the beginnings of modern Asian American cinema, which is Wayne Wang's Chan is Missing. That's a wonderful combination of film noir and identity crisis. It's the search for Mr. Chan. And in that search, the searcher in Wayne Wang's film, which is set in San Francisco, goes through different Chinese experiences, or meets people with different Chinese and Asian identities. And it's a wonderful platform and basis, I think, of these two tendencies. It's an eccentric film, and it's also a kind of classic type of movie. So which way Asian American cinema in the 2020s will go remains to be seen. I don't think my crystal ball is wide enough to give me that answer. But I do watch, some of it, like Past Lives, Minari, etc., etc.
Okay. And tell me a bit about yourself. Apart from the film camp, what will you be working on the next years? Are you associated with some festival now, producing still?
Yes, I'm still I'm an advisor to several film festivals. Apart from the Asian Film Awards Academy, I advise the Far East Film Festival in Udine, Italy. I think some of your readers, viewers will know of it. It's the best film festival in Europe, I think, for Asian films now. And every year they have a great selection. I've helped them on several retrospectives before. I did a retrospective on Asian musicals. I did one on Asian comedies. I now do almost every year, I do a program where we pair two films, perhaps a Western original and an Asian remake, or vice versa, or Asian. So we look at inspirations and remakes. One of the ones if you don't mind me saying, the one I was quite proud of doing was to show Etienne Perrier's Bridge to the Sun with James Shigeta, which is a film about a blonde American woman who marries a Japanese diplomat before the war. War breaks out and they move to Tokyo. And she lives as an American, but married to a Japanese diplomat in Tokyo during World War II. It's a great movie. It's made by Etienne Perrier, who was Belgian, in fact, and he had a two-picture deal with MGM, and he went to Hollywood to make this movie. And I was always curious about the film, and then I finally managed to see it. And I also met Etienne Perrier, and I brought him to Locarno to put him together with James Shigeta after 40 years. So that was, and then so. Later, when I came to show the film again in Udine, I paired it with the film I think was a kind of an inspiration for it, which was the Alain Resnais film Hiroshima Mon Amour. And I realized that Hiroshima Mon Amour was a film about a French woman whose lover is a Japanese guy who survived the Hiroshima atom bomb. This made in 1960-61 by Alain Resnais. And it won awards, and I'm not sure, I think it may have won an Oscar as well. But the studio made Bridge to the Sun, I think, partly in the wake of the success of Hiroshima Mon Amour. Here was a film set in just after the Second World War, between a Japanese man and a European woman. And the same happens in Bridge to the Sun. It's set in the Second World War. It's an American woman and a Japanese guy. So I showed these two films, and I love to show pairs of films to show, coincidences or inspirations and remakes. So I do that sort of thing in Udine. And I'm also an advisor to the London East Asia Film Festival. I helped them when they first began, and it's wonderful to see it grow now, I think after 5, 6, 7 years, 8 or 9 years, sorry. They bring actually a number of Korean talents and but films across the Asian spectrum. I was actually surprised when they approached me, because it suddenly struck me that, yes, there actually isn't, or wasn't at the time, a film festival in London devoted specifically to Asian cinema. You had, festivals of, say, Chinese cinema or Indian cinema, but there wasn't actually one that was devoted just to Asian cinema. So that was interesting. So yes, I do that. And I recently produced, how should I describe it? Multimedia is perhaps one way of describing it, but it was a show called The Once and Future. It's from my concept, and the director was Chris Yo Siu-wah, the Singapore filmmaker who won in Locarno with A Land Imagined. And we shot a film in Argentina during the pandemic, and it's the thing is, the film is an integral part of a wider show that I also produced, which is live music, the film on the screen, and the live music's from an ensemble from the Berlin Philharmonic. We have the film on the screen by Chris Yo, and then we have a young Indian singer, and then a laser lights going on by a guy called Flex from Singapore. So it's a mixture of live music, live singing, a film, and a laser light show. And it's it's partly sci-fi, as all these things tend to be, but it's something I'd never done before. And life is short, so I don't want to repeat things that people can do better than myself. And I'm interested in different things, but in this particular case, I was keen that the film should not be a background. The film should be part of it. So we show the lives of ordinary people on the screen, and then on the stage we have some weird things going on. So I suppose that's one way to put it. So the show opened in the Singapore Arts Festival last year. It was, and then it had its premiere at the New Vision Arts Festival in Hong Kong, and then gradually it will play in other places. It's a show that can only be performed live. It's not. People ask me, "Oh, do you have a video?" But the video does it no justice, actually. And I understand now about the difference between films about performances and films that that are films, so to speak. So that is that's a project that I recently completed, and at the moment I'm actually also producing a documentary on Wilfredo Lam, who is a fascinating character. I studied art history, so I knew a bit about him. But Wilfredo Lam is a Cuban Chinese painter from the 20th century. He is of great interest to a number of us because apart from the quality of his work, he was an acolyte in the sense of Picasso. He fought in the Spanish Civil War in the 30s on the anti-Franco side, and then he was in France in the Second World War, escaped to Martinique, went to Cuba, back home to Cuba, etc. And then he had a complete career in postmodern Europe. But he is one of the few artists of color in the modern 20th century modern art movements. And his father came from southern China. His mother was an origin from the Congo. She was born in Cuba, but her ancestors were slaves from the Congo. And his work is really intriguing and wonderful. And I am interested in it partly because, of course, of the South American or Cuban roots of it, but also the Chinese roots. And I'm very interested because very few people have commented actually on Wilfredo Lam's Chinese side. Michel Leiris, the French writer, wrote a little bit about it, but not too much. And that's an area which I would like to study a bit more. And so the documentary, which is made by a friend of mine, Jean-Luc Bonifacino, who is a French filmmaker, will look into some of these aspects, because everybody, people who know Wilfredo Lam's work know him as, say, a Cuban artist or Latin American and also French, but they very rarely talk about his Chinese side, and that's of interest to me. And through Jean-Luc, we have the support of the Lam family. So this is something by the way, just to say that his masterpiece, The Jungle, is in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and he has works all over the place. He died in 1982. And there have been some works on him, but I'm hoping that we can make something quite distinctive and quite different on the life of this multicultural artist. And I think his time has come. There's a trend in African art today. There is a great interest in diversity and also mixed heritage. And Wilfredo Lam is the pioneer, actually, in this area.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one last question, I guess, hearing you talking about so many projects, what comes to mind is, don't you ever get tired?
Yes, I do, actually. They say if you're doing something you like, then it's not really work in a way. And, I've been running film festivals and programming things since I was 25 years old when I ran the Hong Kong International Film Festival. And then I've been making films as well, also, of course, since my teens, as most filmmakers do, as a producer, not as a filmmaker. So, when you do something for so long, why give it up if you are if you are enjoying it. Whether you're successful at it or not is, I think, another question. But and depends on how you measure success. But for me, it's actually going ahead and doing what you do in the best way you can. That is more important than getting millions of dollars at the box office.
Okay. Great. I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for having me, and good luck with your website, which I enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Panos.
Okay, bye. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye-bye.